Now let's get more on Gaza now. And Hamas says it's right now reviewing the latest proposal from Israel about a potential ceasefire in exchange for the return of Israeli hostages. The prospect of a deal is key to the timing of the ground offensive Israel has vowed to undertake in Rafah. Well, for more on this, I'm now joined by the former head of the Palestinian desk at Israel's Ministry for Strategic Affairs, Kobi Michael. Thank you for joining us on the program. I want to start by asking you about these mediation efforts. And we're hearing that there's been notable progress in the talks. What's your assessment of how they're progressing and what can we expect from them?
Good morning. I'm a bit skeptical about any progress. It looks that the leadership of Hamas in the Gaza Strip still believes that the time works in favor of them, and not only the time, but the US and the entire international community by pressuring Israel and criticizing Israel. And I assume that they have no real incentive to make some further concessions with regard to the negotiation. I hope that I'm wrong in my assessment, but I believe that the main goal of Hamas leadership is to survive and to remain the sovereign power in the Gaza Strip in the day after the war. This will be the ultimate victory for them. And therefore, they intend to keep hostages as a sort of an insurance policy. And even if there will be a sort of a deal, they will not release all of the hostages.
And what's your assessment of the role that the possible invasion of Rafah has had in the midst of these talks? Do you think it has cast a shadow over the talks? And should the offensive happen, how will it impact any mediations?
I think that the offensive by itself is not enough in order to create the impact or the required impact on Hamas leadership in Gaza. In order to create such an impact and in order to increase the probability for a more successful negotiation, we have to add to the military offensive or to the military pressure two additional pressures. The first one is the pressure on Qatar. And this is a pressure that only the US can create because Qatar has the most significant leverage over Hamas. And the second pressure is to create the alternative, the replacement for Hamas on the ground immediately, at least in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, in a way that will signal to the leadership of Hamas and to the people of Gaza that still support Hamas that Hamas is not an option anymore. Only by creating these three vectors or these three pressures simultaneously, I think that there is a higher probability for a breakthrough in the negotiation.
And in the meantime, Israel says it continues to prepare for a full-scale offensive on Rafah. What options do you think the Israeli military has, considering the more than 1 million people who are sheltering in Rafah right now because of the ongoing conflict?
Israel or the IDF has several options, and the plans are already ready and approved by the War Cabinet. And we have to remember that although there are something like 1.3 million people in Rafah area, the IDF does not intend to attack all the area. And I assume that the area will be divided to small polygons, to small areas like we did in Khan Yunis. And people will be evacuated from these small polygons whenever the IDF will intend to enter these polygons. And I assume that there are some other tactics that will be used. First of all, in order to surprise Hamas, because Hamas is waiting us there. And secondly, in order to assure a minimal casualties among civilians.
Thank you very much, Kobi Michael. Thank you for joining us on BBC News.